I'm Jeff Giordano, and today we have Mario Garcia. Mario Garcia, an ex-major with the City of Miami Police Department, 28 years of police experience, also the director of Port Everglades Port Security, and we are here to share his experiences and what we could do as a sheriff's department that the county will soon be to better port security. As you are well aware, Miami Dade County also has the Port of Miami, which is one of the biggest seaports. Mario, welcome to our show. And what is the biggest threat port security faces here in Dade County?
The biggest threat will always be uh, terrorism, as well as narcotics trafficking and human trafficking.
And do we have that here visible in Dade County?
Um, I know that in Port Everglades, okay, um, security um, in um, in the port is uh, is really tight. Okay, you have to go through several vetting processes to drive your vehicle into the cruise area terminals. Okay, when you're getting on a cruise, and also for cargo. In the port of Miami, they are the only vetting that is done. It really is at the cruise terminals. Okay, even though the Miami-Dade Police Department is involved in providing um, visibility. They have a port police port services bureau headed by a major of police. All right, uh, really is like a retirement job before you retire. All right, it's a small contingent. All right, and Port Everglades is a little different. It's also run by a major, but the deployment of police personnel is larger. Also, the security in the ports is overseen by the United States Coast Guard.
And how many officers, more or less, does Miami-Dade County give to the Port Everglades, and what's their
Well,
function there?
Miami-Dade County, the port deployment when I was there at the Port of Miami was like about 20, 25, and maybe a little bit less.
How
And
close do they work with, like a director of the port as well as their security personnel?
there's communication, and uh, they are responsible for making sure that some of the U.S. Coast Guard's protocols are enforced. The majority of the security in the Port of Miami is provided by private contractors.
Okay, and you had mentioned human trafficking, drug trafficking, not just in our ports, but in our marinas here in Dade County. And I'm sure you remember one of our retired Captain Yee. It was a case that I handled as a spokesperson. He was the dock master here on Miami River, and he was working with the feds on a human trafficking and narcotics case, and they basically blew his head off. They brought in a hitman from Colombia, which was later arrested in New York for a separate charge, and they were able to pin this on him through a Coca-Cola bottle that they used as a silencer.
Remember that?
So, as far as docks and ports, how are they smuggling these drugs in, and why is it only 6% of containers get checked?
Well, the majority of the containers are screened um, by U.S. Customs personnel overseas. There's the Customs has personnel that are deployed in different ports throughout the country. Okay, similar to TSA. All right, they have them in several airports. When they get here, they get here to South Florida. Uh, there are a selected number of containers that are screened through these mechanical devices, X-ray machines that are called uh, uh, CVACs. Okay, they're like they have a metal uh, overhead, and they're slowly moved through this gap. All right, and there's an operator inside the truck that's looking at what's in the containers. Also, all containers have special security devices. All containers coming into the country are mandated to have special locking devices that as they are offloaded here in the United States, if there's any damage to that locking device, the container is isolated, all right, and then it's screened further. It's taken to a warehouse by customs and is screened, okay, much more and more in depth search. They really open it and take everything out, okay. Um, the devices are mandated by the U.S. Coast Guard, all right, and United States Customs. Unless these containers don't have these devices on, the container cannot enter the United States. Also, there are different ports throughout the Latin America and the Middle East. Uh, the ports in Miami, in the United States, operate under the MARSEC level. Those are security levels, okay? If, if the container is coming from, let's say, Colombia or the Dominican Republic or Haiti, all right, or somewhere in the Middle East, it'll be under MARSEC level 2, meaning that half of they're gonna screen, okay, they're gonna undergo a much in-depth screening than a container coming from Costa Rica or Mexico, all right, or let's say France, all right. So it's very important that port operators understand what the different MARSIC levels are, okay, and their requirements in sending goods to the United States,
But why only 6%? Why don't we scan 100% of
because
containers?
it's too consuming. It's manpower intensive, and the importance of moving commerce quickly and smoothly. For example, the flower industry is very, very big, very powerful, a very strong economic engine, not only in South Florida, but in the Southeast United States. The flower importers, okay, most of the flowers coming into this country are from Colombia, okay? They have a contract that they're most that these that their containers are going to stay in a processing warehouse is going to be maybe 2 to 3 days, and that's because they have created, okay, security vetting processes overseas as well as here. So the concept, most of the goods arriving in our country come on a superhighway, which is the ocean. And the concept is to ensure the smooth flow and movement of commerce. You're talking
How
about,
big is cargo theft, and how much of an impact does that have on a consumer regarding ports?
well, the Miami Dade County, I believe that um, just restarted recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the cargo theft task force. You have cargo theft task forces, both in Miami Dade County and in the state, which most municipalities operate. They participate in that uh, uh, crime suppression operation. It is important, okay, and at one time it was out of control because of the fact that you're talking about, you have a chipper that is bringing in a container with thousands of dollars worth of perfume, and now someone decides to steal that container. Usually the driver belongs to a cargo theft gang. They stop the truck somewhere in some side of the road. They come in, they remove the screws on on the door of the container. They take out, let's say, 20 pallets of the perfume. They put the screws back on. They put a little paint, all right. And now the person, the business that purchased $1 million worth of perfume ends up with having $350,000 worth of perfume.
So there's no inventory taken at the ports. They come, they pick it up more or less. They have the
The
cargoes,
containers
the
are not
containers.
open at the port. The only time a container is open at the port is when that container is being offloaded. The longshoreman or the header is inspecting that container and sees that the locking device, the special lock on the door, has been damaged. He announces, I've got a damaged container here with a lock. That container is um, uh, put isolated in a special area of the port. Customs is notified. Customs sends a team. Okay, they look at the damage on the lock. All right, or whether it has a lock or not. Because as suspect, they take the container to a warehouse. They screen it for radioactive material, and they X-ray it. All right, that is an in-depth process. Then they open it and they take everything out. And if they see that it was foul play, sometimes a container, the lock might get damaged as it's being loaded onto the bay of the cargo ship. It shouldn't, but it can happen. All right. Um, they start a criminal investigation, and when there's cargo theft involved, and I've had several cases.
And in this particular case with the Port of Miami, would it be the county sheriff's office or would it be the Coast Guard that does the
It would
criminal
be the Sheriff's
investigation?
Department, the FBI, and the United States Coast Guard.
Now, how often are these thefts occur at a port, say in Colombia, Costa Rica, prior to getting here? And I don't know if you remember the construction thefts that happened, thousands of pounds of things stolen that they would make insurance claims. And we had a case ourselves that we worked together at the Winn-Dixie, hundreds of cases of beer that was stolen. And when we did the investigation, the beer was never even put on the truck. They were signing for it. The driver was in cahoots with the person at the store, and it was never being put on the shelves. Is this happen a lot where that merchandise is not even sent?
Overseas. It happens overseas. I don't know the percentage of how much it happens in countries like Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, but it does happen overseas, and especially if the security in the ports is not to the standards. It happens less here in the United States, okay, than it happened overseas. Let me give you an example. While I was at the Port Everglades, we were getting shipments of perfume and high value whiskeys from France. Okay, the container was not damaged. They come in 3 days later. They take it out. They take it to the ship, to the owner. The owner opens it up and said, "Hey, I'm supposed to have 40, 50 pallets of perfume. I only have 10 or 20. So the initial focus is somebody took it here in Miami, in South Florida. The investigation, there was no damage. The security lock was on there. They had to go to France, and it was being stolen in France. Okay, it was being opened at the point of our origin. Okay, they doctor the documents, they fake the documents. Okay, and then when it got here, okay, the owner sees that, hey, I've been ripped off of thousands of dollars. The reverse has happened. Example: X number of shoes were brought here to South Florida in containers. The driver was a member of a cargo theft gang. All right, they were professionals. Okay, he stopped the truck on his way to the warehouse. They came in. They arrived and they parked right behind the forklift, right behind the truck, the container. They came in a matter of minutes. They removed the screws. They opened up the door. They took out X number of pallets, right? They put her in their vans and trucks. They left. They put the screws back on, okay? They painted it. Their only mistake was that they forgot to paint one of them. So you can see all the screws, and then you see one that's brand new, shiny. So when they came to the terminal, cargo terminal, hey, one of your guys stole this. No, it wasn't us. It was done outside of here, and whoever did it forgot to paint the last screw. Fortunately, they interrogated the driver, and they put a lot of pressure on him, and he became a cooperating witness, and he handed up, about 10 people that were involved in that.
So terrorism, I know they hit one of our U.S. battleships. I know in Africa,
In Yemen,
they also had a huge terrorist attack in one of the ports there. What stops nuclear reactive material getting in one of these containers and coming to the port of Miami? And how important is it for the sheriff's office to stop putting their retirement personnel that are have the vision of doing nothing because they're in the drop and they have a couple months to retire? How important is that?
well, it's very important, but remember that
How do they stop this radioactive material?
Well, let me tell you this. Like I told you that, well, let me get backtrack. There are certain types of tiles, floor tiles made in Italy that will emit a radioactive signal. When the trucks are leaving the ports, both the Port of Miami and Port Everglades, there's these lanes that the truck arrives. When the truck arrives at the beginning, at the entrance of the lane, these lanes have these tubes protruding. All right, they are nuclear and radioactive detectors. As the truck pulls into the lane, those detectors are screening the truck, the driver, and reading everything. If there's any radioactive signals coming in, emanating from the container.
So in this particular instance, 100% gets scanned leaving there.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Okay. As far as opening the containers, it's much less.
It's much less.
You see that there are different levels.
Absolutely.
Overseas, and the countries that are smart about it, okay, they have serious security personnel and protocols in their ports, because what they want is they don't want to get the reputation like, this came out of this port, so therefore the businesses in this country might not want to use those ports. Hey, instead of bringing it from here, bring it from there, or I'm not going to do business in this country. I'm going to do business in that other country because they're more serious about port security.
What would you like to see with the sheriff's department here now, Miami-Dade County turning into the sheriff's department? What would you like to see to increase port security with the sheriff's office?
A greater deployment of personnel, more proactive in vetting. In the port of Miami, the vetting should be before you enter the port. Okay, pretend, and I think you'll see the pictures in a copy of a presentation that I gave you. Pretend that you have 2 blocks of cheeses.
Okay.
One block of cheese is sweet cheese. The sweet cheese is full of holes. That's Port of Miami. The other one is a block of cheese, and there are no holes. That's Port Everglades.
So you want to see a sheriff's office that has a block of cheese without any holes in it. And I see this happening. And let's working together more, I guess, with the security director.
A more proactive rather than reactive sheriff department. And hopefully we'll have a sheriff, and I hope that is you, because I think that you will make a great sheriff, okay, that doesn't think in terms of conventional, rather, and would think of in terms of taking the initiative and talking about the future of policing. I want to tell you something. Policing right now is under attack in our country. But you know who are going to be the saviors of American policing in this country? The citizens and the sheriff's departments. I travel throughout the country. I see the sheriff's department. They maintain their professionalism, okay? They are very proactive, okay? Especially in Broward County, going all the way north, the sheriff's department are very proactive.
There's no doubt we need a proactive sheriff in Dade County and an innovator, as you well know. And with that being said, God bless Miami-Dade County, and God bless America.
And God bless you, and I hope you become sheriff, and I think that you will be a fantastic sheriff.
And definitely not when I become, you will definitely be the consultant hired on Port of Miami security.
I will be a voter. I'm retired, okay? And I will be your friend, like I've always been, Mario Garcia.
Thank you, Mario.